And we'll come back to you once we've had that national address from the President. Thanks very much, though, for now. Let's continue, though, to discuss what is happening in Sri Lanka. Let's talk to Dr. Ram Manikkalingam, who's a former advisor to the former Sri Lankan President. Thank you so much for being here on the programme. Can you believe what is going on in Sri Lanka?
It is actually quite shocking and unbelievable that a government that was elected with two-thirds majority and a president that came in with a landslide barely 2 years ago has now turned around completely, where the people themselves are asking them to go.
Why do you think it has got so bad?
I think the main factor here is the economic factor. The government's incompetence and arrogance, might I say, in handling the economy has aggravated a situation that was already bad. And the result is that people have lost all faith in the government.
We've seen the tactics operated by the police. We've seen the violence of the last few days. You were in Colombo not that long ago. Is it your view that the protests will continue as long as the president stays in post, or do you think that he could find a way to manage to stay in office?
Well, currently, I believe that the protests will continue until the president resigns. Today, there is a standoff between the president on the one hand and the leader of the opposition on the other about who should leave or who should be in office. The president has refused to resign, and the leader of the opposition has said that he will not take office as prime minister until the president resigns. So we are in this position where neither one of the leaders of the two main political parties has stepped back from this standoff. And it's critical that they work out a compromise here.
Well, it is, because you had that warning only the last couple of hours from the central bank that unless they can get a new government in place in a couple of days, so only 48 hours, their assessment is that the economy would totally collapse. What does a total collapse of the economy actually mean from where they are now?
Well, a total collapse would mean that we would run out of medicines, we would run out of rice, dal, basic necessities, and we would run out of food and fuel. So it would make it very, very difficult for people to live their lives. Nevertheless, I think there's a way out. I think it's critical that the president announce, and I hope he does this in his address, that he is willing to change the constitution and get rid of the powers that he has as president, and that he will leave office by the end of the year. And in the meanwhile, he invites the leader of the opposition to form a government, and the leader of the opposition expresses his willingness to form a government that consists of all parties in parliament to deal immediately, first with the economic crisis, and then with the change in constitution that will eliminate the powers of the president, and finally hold an election in 6 months to 1 year that will allow a new government with the legitimacy and mandate of the people to come in and deal with the next set of challenges.
Isn't the difficulty that everything you've just outlined is rather medium-term, long-term? The crisis is now, what people are going through is now. I mean, you were there in Colombo only, I think it was last week. What are people telling you about just how hard it is to get from day to day?
It is very difficult to get from day to day. And we need an infusion of assistance from overseas. But no government is going to give assistance when there is no government in Sri Lanka. So I think the president, by taking this step, by being willing to relinquish power, would then demonstrate that he considers the people far more important than he's continuing in office.
A twin final thought. What is needed from the international community? And if in that national address in the next few minutes the president finds some sort of formula that essentially means he remains in office, what do you predict is likely to happen?
Well, if he finds a formula to remain in office, this tension and standoff will continue, and Sri Lanka's economic situation will descend to catastrophic levels. What I hope, however, is that he will show some flexibility, indicate a timeline in which he will relinquish his powers, and then that will enable the international community, in particular friends of Sri Lanka, to come in and give a rapid infusion of capital that will allow us to deal with the immediate issues and then the medium to long-term issues down the road.
Well, we should watch in the next couple of minutes and see how things pan out. Things so fluid. Doctor, thank you for your time and that analysis. Perhaps we'll talk again in the coming days. Thanks very much for joining us on BBC News.
Thank you, Matthew.